as a junior, it can be really daunting because there's so many things to learn.
And I think a lot of people put too much pressure on themselves.
First thing I modeled was a pair of glasses, and I learned 3ds Max from a book. So we've come a long way. Early on in my career, when I was being crunched against my will as a junior artist, it was like, oh, this is awful. Is this what the VFX industry is like? I don't want to do this. But as I grew, I realized.
Hey, Saga.
Hey, sorry about all the back and forth. It's been a whirlwind for me the past 6 months, man.
Don't you worry at all, and congratulations on being a father.
Cheers, man.
How's it going?
Difficult, I'm not going to lie, because in between that, there's also a lot of stress happening at work at the moment.
Oh, man, deadlines.
Pressure's on, plus newborn baby, plus everything just going mad. Yeah, it's tough. My name is Saga Alayyoubi. I'm a senior 3D artist currently at Epic. I studied architecture back in university and worked as an architect for a while before realizing that I was better at visualization and decided that it wasn't just the building side of ArchViz that I was interested in, but it was environments as a whole. And I worked at MPC for a while, doing a mixture of CG work for traditional environment CG work, but then also a lot of real-time work at MPC because they had an Unreal sort of experimental department there. And then I had a freelance job at Double Negative where I was just working on film. I'd never worked on film before. So that was a really cool experience just to see what the process is like there. Epic Games was opening a London office. And when I first joined in 2019, it was myself and another 3D artist in Alistair in a big empty office on Tottenham Court Road. So it's grown quite a lot in the last few years.
When we was down in London last, we was fortunate enough to pop in and visit.
I want to try this on.
Can you see?
No.
Have you been in that suit at
I
all?
have not, no.
The Joe Rogan, how did that come about? Just tell us a little bit about that project to start with.
That was probably the weirdest, funniest personal project I embarked on. I collaborated on this project with a really good friend of mine, Kubisi, who's a really amazing character artist. And this was kind of at the time when NFTs were just starting to pop off and you were seeing people making just crazy amounts of money selling NFTs. And we were like, all right, what can we do that's fun and easy and is collaborative between the two of us? We tried to get it in front of Joe. I don't know if he ever actually saw it or if he saw it and didn't like it, but he never got back to us.
Did you storyboard it? What was the actual breakdown of creating this piece,
We listen to the podcast all the time, and so we kind of wanted to make this just an overall sort of tribute to everything Joe does. So obviously, he's always talking about humans in terms of our relationship with apes and how we evolved from apes. He's always talking to evolutionary biologists. He's obviously got the MMA thing, so we have the fighters. And then the sort of astronaut is a tribute to all the podcasts he does with Duncan Trussell, where they're wearing the NASA outfits. So it's all just little Easter egg bits to different shows he's done over the years.
What was their weapon of choice to create the model?
ZBrush everything. Yeah. We used some of the MetaHuman shaders. So the skin shader was adapted from the base material of MetaHumans. Apart from that, it's all just bespoke, from scratch stuff. The thing with these personal projects is you have all these hopes and dreams for them at the time, this is going to go viral, this and that. But at the end of the day, when you look back on it, all you remember is whether you enjoyed making it or not.
And did you enjoy it?
Yeah, absolutely. I learned a lot doing the project, and it was also really fun to collaborate with my friend. We hadn't properly worked together on a project. I think that's a big part of being a CG artist, is being able to work with others and enjoy it and work well. It's as much as part of the job as just being good at ZBrush or being good at modeling, whatever. It's are you easy to work with? Do people like working with you? I think that's a skill that you develop over time as well.
Yes, definitely. I was always given a piece of advice way back in university from my university lecturer. She says, just don't be a dick. Yeah. Because it's a massive industry, but such a small world. And if you don't get on with other people.
Absolutely. And it makes a huge difference, in your day-to-day happiness. If you're on a team and everybody, you've got tight deadlines, you've got a lot of pressure, but everybody around you is able to just be happy and chill about everything that's going on, it makes a world of difference to your stress levels, because you just know you're in it together, everyone gets along, that versus the opposite, where people are at each other's throats because, hey, my UVs aren't here in time, and what's going on with this, and people throwing each other under the bus. Like, I've been in both of those situations, and it's night and day in terms of the experience you have.
Moving on then, Saga, to the amazing Japanese sketches. Can you just tell us a little bit about those projects and how they came about?
I started working on these at a time when there were quite a few like non-UE5 projects going on at the office, and I was just getting the itch to push myself in terms of environment art in Unreal. This was kind of the early phases of when UE5 first came out, is when I started working on these. And I was interested in, how much geometry we can start to push with nanite in UE5, and what can we do with indirect lighting with Lumen. Like, prior to this, I hadn't really experimented with those technologies on my personal work. I've always wanted to just do really beautiful Japanese environments just because I love that stuff. Like, I love Japanese culture, Japanese architecture. That was kind of where that started.
What kind of like workflow did you use to sort of create these environments?
A lot of it was off-the-shelf models. So like a lot of making use of the new Quixel assets, like the new Quixel trees, which had come out around this time. There were a couple of marketplace, like sort of temples that I modified a little bit just from the Unreal Marketplace. And then bespoke things for when I didn't have models that fit the scenes I wanted. But really it was mostly a task of scene assembly, lighting, and really just trying to push like how much geometry can I get into a real-time scene now. It was like about density more than anything.
So these are just sort of like challenges and understanding something that you can, implement into your professional side of things.
100%, yeah. Like a lot of times I found in my career that when I wasn't being challenged at work, like let's say you're kind of finding yourself spinning your wheels at work because you're not being asked to do anything outside of your comfort zone. That's when you get the itch to do personal stuff that pushes you. And so that's what most of my personal projects are, is like I feel a need to push myself in order to not sort of fall behind like what's going on in the industry. And so that's kind of what I was doing at that time. And honestly, I'm feeling that itch again now. Like really? I'm thinking about personal projects I want to do now where I'm like, okay, I finished these up a couple of months ago and now I'm ready to like start a new one and push myself in another direction.
So 3ds Max, that's obviously your architectural background and skill set, and V-Ray obviously with 3ds Max, and it's something that you've used as part of these Japanese sketches challenges. What was that workflow? Is that just for sort of models?
I don't use 3ds Max for much apart from like preparing assets for Unreal. So like basically all the sculpting in ZBrush. And then I would prepare like the low poly assets and the UVs that are going to be brought into Substance Painter for texturing. I would prepare those in 3ds Max. So 3ds Max is kind of like a aggregator tool for all of my different models. It could be Blender, it could be Maya, but it's just a way of collating the high poly stuff from ZBrush and prepping all that stuff for Unreal. So I'm not actually generally modeling things in 3ds Max. It's more like scene assembly, asset prep.
Out of interest, the grass and the overgrown, steps and stuff, how's that all made in Unreal Engine? Is that an add-on or?
No, it's just using the foliage painting tool.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah, foliage painting tool with Megascan assets and just cranking up the density of the foliage brush to see how much I can throw at it before my machine starts to squirm.
When the room gets hotter, you know that it's pushing the GPUs.
Yeah, that's enough density on the foliage brush. That's how you know.
And when you start to smell a bit of burning, that's when you've gone too far.
I love the smell of napalm in the morning. It smells like victory.
I haven't got there yet, yeah.
You need to throw more at it, Saga.
Yeah, I know.
And what type of system was you using to create this? What kind of GPUs?
I have a 2080 Ti at home, so it wasn't top of the line or anything, but it was enough to handle the needs of the scene. I actually just bought myself a new rig with a 4090, so I'm excited to see.
Oh yes,
I'm excited to see how good that is.
Is this lining up with something in mind for the next project, or? Yeah,
I mean, I just. Besides the 2080 GPU in my personal machine, the other specs, I mean, it's an ancient computer. It's like an Alienware machine from 2013 with a 2080 GPU slapped in it. Definitely well overdue. Like that thing has lasted me 10 years of personal projects and pain. And
brilliant.
Its time has come.
And is that the system that you use to create all the projects that we've spoken about today?
Yeah.
Amazing.
The CPU was struggling to keep up, but those NVIDIA graphics cards go a long way.
Speaking about the tool sets and what artists have available today, is incredible compared to what was available way back when. I always think now I shouldn't complain that I've got it really difficult compared to what they went through way back then to get to what, you know, they created.
Yeah, but also you got to remember the bar is so much higher now as well.
Absolutely, yeah. And then people see so much more stuff.
That's human nature. We're always as a society, as a culture, like pushing to create newer and better and more amazing things. This is funny. When I first learned 3D, first thing I modeled was a pair of glasses, and I learned 3ds Max from a book. Like I had to go to a shop in New York called Barnes & Noble, buy a 3D modeling for dummies book to learn how to like spline model in 3ds Max.
Incredible.
So we've come a long way.
What about your lighting setups? They're stunning. So any tips and tricks for the Saga method of Unreal Engine lights?
I think it's getting much easier. Like it's just with Lumen now, you've got GI for free, you know, like you're having to learn less and less under the hood, crazy, weird Unreal Engine tricks to get your scenes to just look real. The other thing that's really cool is the path tracer. If you don't need to have your project be interactive and be a game, you know, path tracer is a route to getting, you know, basically Octane level lighting and rendering out of the box in Unreal, just dropping a skylight in there and getting perfect path traced soft lighting. It's easier than ever.
And what about your first time experience in Unreal Engine? What was it like seeing things so, you know, responsive, and, you know, what was it like just exploring that world and shaders and shadows? And
the first thing I did was download all of the like template projects that Unreal was releasing. You know, pick apart their lighting, pick apart their materials, and learn it through deconstructing it. I would still advise that to this day. Like if there's amazing free scenes out there, deconstruct them on your own.
That's a great way to do it. Actually, like kind of like work backwards to understand
how they built their scenes. Yeah.
You know, when you're working on like personal projects and you're learning like new softwares and things like that, how do you find being your own critic? And, you know, do you ever show it to other people? And how do you sort of decide?
It depends how close you are with people. Like I have really good friends who are really talented artists. So sometimes I can go to them and be like, hey, you know, I'm too close to this piece. I can't objectively look at it anymore. I don't know what's good about it and what's bad about it because I've been looking at it so much. So, you know, if you have friends in the industry who you trust and have a great eye, they're the first port of call. And besides that, you know, try to be your own worst critic. You know, try to get ahead of what you think the criticism will be. And yeah, you have to be really, really kind of harsh on yourself.
Yeah, like push yourself, because it's easy to just say, oh, you know what, that looks good enough. I'll just put it down.
You know that stupid cliche of art is never finished, only abandoned. Like almost everything can be better. So it's just a matter of you deciding, right, when is it like good enough? When is it past the good enough to just say I'm done sort of phase? And that's a tough line to get to.
Do you ever feel like you've looked at something for too long? I'm going to put it down. I'm going to come back to this in like a week's time with fresh eyes. And have you ever done that? Come back and gone, actually, what was I thinking?
Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes it's even the next day.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes you'll be working something late into the night, and you're like, oh, this looks sick. I love this so much. And you look at it in the morning, you're like, no, it doesn't. It looks terrible.
It's crazy when that happens, isn't it? Because you really think, you know, what was I thinking?
You just get too close to it, man. And it happens to all of us. It's just a natural thing. You start to lose the forest for the trees. You get so caught up in like one little detail that you were just like finessing, and you just got it the way you like. And then you step back the next day and you're like, oh, the proportions are all wrong. Yeah. Here I was fussing about this detail, and just take a step back. It's just not working.
Can you just tell us a little bit about what you did on the Matrix video game?
Sure, yeah. I mean, that was a really big team, and I was kind of brought on when they were already well on their way to like, they'd already established all the workflows and pipelines, and they needed to like pull different people from Epic to just help finish it up. So my job was helping the guys who were making all of the city buildings to help do all of the materials and the interiors for the buildings. So we did a technique that's used in all modern games now, which is basically parallax mappings, so fake 3D interiors for the windows. There's a lot of interiors in that city, so it was just a lot of like rinse and repeat, and then getting the materials to look good and run within budget on all of the different specs we had. So, but it was cool to be exposed to what the team were doing, and it was the first big sort of nanite lumen release for UE5 that went out on console. So it was just a fun project to be part of.
Your career since you started Saga, what has been your favourite project that you've ever worked on?
One of the recent really fun ones was a project I did alongside the Quixel team, and it was called 90 Days. The Quixel team wanted to demonstrate how, with the amazing library they've built up over the years, how artists can very quickly put scenes together. And the challenge set by the art director was like, right, you get 5 days to address each of these prompts. One of them, the Desert Canyon one, was just like, I need a ship flying through a desert canyon, go. Like, whatever you want to do within that brief, it's up to you. So, and yeah, you had 5 days to like pull stuff from the Quixel library, whatever you could model in that time. Yeah, it was, I think my favorite thing about that project was the challenge of pushing myself to be able to do stuff within that time frame, but also the different artists that I got to meet. All the other guys working on this project were just incredible artists, and I learned so much from them about, their workflows, and seeing their scenes come together sort of pushed me to like improve what I was doing, because, every day in the Slack channel, you'd see like all these sick new renders, and it was like,
nice.
Oh my God, I need to keep up with this.
What's it like working under the pressure of 5 days? Is that, like you say, this, let's go?
It was fun, man, because it was a challenge. It was just like one of those times where it's just like hunker down and push yourself.
Yeah. Was you limiting yourself to normal work hour days, or was you crunching on those?
No, it wasn't normal. It was crunch. It was like wake up, switch on the machine.
Yeah.
Pass out at 2 a.m,
really?
Rinse, repeat. Yeah, it was a crunch. And I think sometimes, you want to be in those pressure cooker moments where you're pushing yourself for your own sake. Like, you're pushing your own skill set. It's not like you're doing something that you're not interested in. You need those times when you're hyper-focused, you're super interested in what you're doing, and you're pushing yourself to the limit just to see how far can I push myself? How far can I go for my own sake, not for anyone else's sake?
Yeah,
those are really, really cool times in your life, I think.
And how do you find it now, just that work-life balance?
Yeah, it's hard. I see it sort of coming and going in waves. So there'll be weeks or months where I'm just crunching. It's just like nonstop, 16 hours, 18 hours, 20 hours. But in the back of my mind, I know it's not forever. Early on in my career, when I was being crunched against my will as a junior artist at studios, I was like, oh, this is awful. Is this what the VFX industry is like? I don't want to do this. But as I grew, I realized, I got more senior, so I got a little bit more say in when I crunched. I also learned that it wasn't forever.
If you're crunching for like 2 weeks or a month, and then knowing after that there's a bit more of a downtime, what do you do to sort of unwind and sort of separate?
I play football, go to the gym, but a lot of it is just playing sports and exercise, because when I do that, I feel like I forget about everything else that's going on. You're just focused on the singular activity. And I think the endorphin rush you get out of that just helps release a lot of the tension from the discussions at work and everything. And your body feels better physically. Like, there were a few years back when I was doing VR work where I was really, really focused on like moving ahead in my career, and I didn't have anything outside of work. There was no outlet. There was no release valve. And so that just piles on and piles on to the point where you start making, or I at least started making bad decisions in terms of how I conducted myself at work. Like, I would get super stressed in meetings and things like that. I think having that outlet allows me to just kind of have a bit of perspective and understand that, like, whether this project goes the way I want it or not is not the be-all, end-all of my life.
How do you feel, it is in this world today of being vulnerable, of putting your work onto social media and getting criticised? It's quite a daunting thing to be that vulnerable at times.
Yeah, it's hard. There's no doubt about it, and everybody goes on their own sort of journey to get there. But as a junior, it can be really daunting, because there's so many things to learn in terms of being a good VFX artist, even in terms of just environments alone. You got to get good at modeling, texturing, set dressing, composition, lighting. Like, those are all different skills. There's too many things to try and get good at to do it all at once.
Yeah, definitely. And I think a lot of people feel like I need to know everything when that's not the case. It just
takes a long time. Yeah, there's just it just takes years. Like, it's just really hard stuff. Especially like when you're trying to get to the top level and you see the sort of best work out there in AAA games. There's a reason that people, have spent years and years to get to where they are. It's just hard, difficult work.
Comparing yourself to people that are at the top, or wherever the top is, or whatever it is, you forget that they've been doing this potentially for years, 20 years, 30 years. And then I guess in this day and age, especially with young artists, they feel like things should happen quicker. I mean, not everybody, but there's this thing where the social media moves quickly, and you feel that you need to be this, and I think a lot of people put too much pressure on themselves at times.
It's a challenge. Yeah, it's natural, I think, to feel, let's say, disheartened if you're struggling to do something and you see other people have done it successfully. Like, it's natural to feel like, why am I not getting this? And we all have that. Like, we've all had that. Still have it to this day.
Yeah.
But I think what you learn over time as well is just the resilience to push further and further through challenges. Like, let's say you're struggling to get good at sculpting. The only answer is just keep sculpting. In a way, I do believe there is such a thing as innate capability and talent. And some people do have, like, let's say, a knack for things. But everybody who's gotten really good has just put in the hours. The 10,000 hours, all of those cliches, but it is just time and effort.
And I think as long as you are better than yourself the day before or the week before, I think as long as you're improving on yourself and not trying to be better than other people and be better than you was yesterday, I think that's the best sort of progression. And then really a measure on improvement. Is this piece of work better than my last piece of work? And you should focus on what you're doing opposed to sort of comparing. And it's always great to look up and be inspired by other artists and always do that, of course, but use that to sort of be a better artist for yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
Anything that you want to say? What you're working on next? What's it like being a father and a CG artist?
No, I really enjoyed the conversation. You don't really get many opportunities to kind of reflect and have these sort of deeper, in-depth, like psychological conversations about what it's like to work in our industry. So it's really fun. So thanks for that.
Pleasure.
The challenge of being a father, it's early days still for me, so I don't know. Yeah, it's just life, isn't it? You just try to do what you can to get by.
Going into the industry and knowing about the industry, final question. Would you recommend your son, thoughts on getting the son into the industry? Is it an industry that you feel is going to get better and improve, or is it something that you're trying to go be cautious?
The amazing sort of entertainment experiences that we're able to create now, really good games and really good films as well, can teach you something and take you on a journey. So I really believe that our industry has value to the world. If it turns out that my son, wants to create that kind of stuff, I'll definitely push him in that direction, because I think the industry is only going to get bigger and better, and it's going to be a bigger part of people's lives. It's here to stay then.
I just want to say thanks for spending the time with us today.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, man. Great to meet you.
You too, Saga.
Cheers. See you, man.